There were once 7 Swabians in company, the first of whom was named Schultz, the second Jackie, the third Marley, the fourth Jurgli, the fifth Michael, the sixth Hans, and the seventh Veitli, and they all were traveling in search of adventures, and for the performance of mighty deeds. In order that they might not be without protection, they thought fit to carry along with them a very long and strong pole. Upon this they all 7 held, and in front the boldest and most courageous man, who was Schultz, walked, while the others followed behind, and Veitli was last. One day in July, after they had traveled some distance, and had nearly entered the village where they intended to pass the night, it happened that just as they came to a large meadow a hornet or dragon-fly flew out from behind a bush and hummed about the travelers in a warlike manner. Schultz was frightened and almost let go the pole, and the perspiration stood all over his body from terror. "Listen, listen," he cried to his companions, "I hear a trumpeting." Jackie, who was last but one in the row, and had got I know not what into his nose, exclaimed, "Something certainly is at hand, for I can smell brimstone and powder." At these words Schultz sprang over a hedge, in a trice, in his haste to escape, and, happening to alight on the prongs of a rake which was left in the field by the haymakers, the handle sprang up and gave him an awkward blow on the forehead. "Oh, oh, oh, woe is me!" cried Schultz. "Take me prisoner, I give myself up, I surrender." The 6 others thereupon jumped over the hedge too, and cried likewise, "We surrender if you surrender. We surrender if you surrender." At length, when they found no enemy came to bind and take them away, they saw they were deceived, and in order that the tale might not be told of them among the villagers, and they get laughed at and mocked, they took an oath among themselves never to say anything about it unless any one of them should open his mouth unawares. After this adventure they went farther, but the second danger they met with must not be compared with the first. For after several days had elapsed their road chanced to lead them through an unplowed field where a hare was lying prone in the sun, with his ears pricked up to catch every sound, and his large, glossy eyes wide open. The 7 Swabians were terribly frightened at the sight of this frightful, ferocious animal, and they took counsel together what would be the least dangerous plan to adopt, for if they fled away it was to be feared that the monster would pursue them and cut them to pieces. So they resolved to stand and have a great battle, for, said they, bravely dared is half won. All 7, therefore, grasped hold of their spear, Schultz being among the foremost and Veitli hindmost. But Schultz wanted to have the spear himself, whereupon Veitli flew into a passion and broke away. Then the rest advanced together upon the dragon, but first Schultz crossed himself devoutly and invoked the assistance of heaven. Then he marched on, but as he approached the enemy he felt very fearful and cried in great terror, "Han! Hurlhau! Han! Hauhel!" This awoke the hare, who sprang away quite frightened, and when Schultz saw it flee, he jumped for joy and shouted. Zounds, friends, what fools we are! The frightful beast is but a hare. After they had recovered from their fright, the 7 Swabians sought new adventures, and by they arrived at the river Moselle, a smooth and deep water, over which there are not many bridges, so that one must cross in boats to the other side. The 7 Swabians, however, were ignorant of this, and they therefore shouted to a man who was working on the other side of the river and asked him how they were to pass over. But the man did not understand what they said on account of the distance and his ignorance of their language, and so he asked in his dialect, "What? What?" With this Schultz imagined the man said, "Wade, wade through the stream," and, being foremost on the bank, he jumped into the river and began to walk across. Soon he got out of his depth and sank in the deep, driving current, but his hat was carried by the wind to the opposite shore. As it reached there, a frog perched himself on it, and croaked, "What? What? What?" This noise the 6 other Swabians, who then reached the bank, heard, and they said to one another, "Listen. Does not Schultz call us? Well, if he could wade across, we can also." With these words each one jumped into the river, but they also all sank, and so it happened that the frog caused the death of 6 Swabians, for nobody has heard of or seen them ever since.